Hi, my name is Kayla Harder, former student at San Diego Christian College. So I was born in Minnesota. I'm the oldest of 5 girls, and I asked Jesus into my heart when I was 3 years old. And when I was 7, I felt like he was calling me to missions. This is a call that still resonates in my heart to this day. So as I grew older, I didn't really know how this call, how am I going to do missions? How is this going to work? What am I going to have to offer? And when I was 16 years old, one of my dad's friends offered to take me up on a flight, and I said, sure, why not? So I went up on my very first airplane ride, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I went home, and I was telling my grandma all about it, and she told me about her cousin who works for this organization called the Aviation Fellowship. And I realized that I could use aviation to serve God in missions, and put 2 and 2 together and decided I want to be a missionary pilot. So I started to pursue this call. I started looking at colleges. So where can I go to school to become a missionary pilot? And one of the schools that I was looking at was Liberty University. So I was pretty dead set. This is where I was going to go to school. I went to college for a weekend. I met some of the professors, signed up for a missions trip. But the whole time I was there, I kept hearing over and over again, if God doesn't want you to be here, we don't want you to be here. And that just kept resounding in my mind. But I was really stubborn, and I said, no, I wanted to go to Liberty University. So anyways, as the year goes on, finances weren't really lining up, but I was still sure and certain that God was going to pave the way for Liberty. My mom was looking at scholarships online, and she found a scholarship for San Diego Christian College, the Dr. Henry Morris Leadership Scholarship. Now, the scholarship was due the day before, but she called the college and asked them that they extend the deadline for me. So I come home from school, I've already got my own homework to do, and my mom hands me this application for San Diego. And I looked at her and said, no, I don't want to go to San Diego Christian College, because at the time we actually had moved to Florida, and that was all the way across the entire country. And I said, no, I'm not going to go to school there. But my mom kept pushing it, so I ended up applying, and they invited me out for the scholarship event. So I came out to the school kicking and screaming, because I told my mom over and over again, I don't want to go there, but she forced me and dragged me all the way across the country. And so I woke up the next morning, and I decided I kind of liked it here. So I visited the college, and as soon as I got there, I just had this crazy peace that this is exactly where God wanted me to be. So I went in, and I had a meeting with the director of aviation, and we talked about this other scholarship opportunity, the Missionary Aviation Loan Forgiveness Program. I applied for the scholarship, and I ended up actually getting it. So that was a big factor that kind of led me. God just lined up all of these huge financial obstacles. God just kind of paved the way for me to come to San Diego. So I ended up coming out to San Diego Christian College. I was a student here for 3.5 years. I got a degree in aviation technology, as well as my commercial pilot and certified flight instructor certificates. So after that, I ended up, actually, funny story. So going back to the my plan versus God's plans. So the summer before my last semester at school, I was working for my uncle in his office. He had this really big window that I would watch planes come in to land at the nearby airport through. And I would sit there wishing with all my heart that I was flying and not sitting in an office by myself. So I used to go over to the flight school, and I'd chat with the flight instructors, and I ended up chatting with one instructor who was working on his mechanic license there. And I got this sinking feeling in my heart that God was going to make me move back to Florida, because at that point I had decided I really liked San Diego. I got my driver's license out here. I was looking at jobs in the area, and I had decided I was going to stay in San Diego after college. And then I realized that God was calling me back to Florida. So I kind of struggled with that through my last semester of college, but I ended up applying for a flight school nearby my home in Fort Myers, and I ended up getting the job. And it was so good, just the way that God provided in that whole situation. I ended up getting my multi-commercial and my multi-instructor licenses for free at this flight school. I was able to intern with the mechanic at the flight school 2 days a week, and I actually got paid in this internship. And so God just kind of provided in all these little avenues. They had a Cessna 206, which is specific to the technical evaluation with Mission Aviation Fellowship also uses a 206, and so that was used, all these things, to specifically prepare me to qualified to join Mission Aviation Fellowship. So I spent the next year and a half as a flight instructor at Paragon Flight Training. And then I went to an aviation event called Sun and Fun April 2016, and I decided, okay, now I'm ready to join Mission Aviation Fellowship. So I go to the fair and I'm hunting down the recruiter, and I tell him, okay, I'm ready. What do I need to do next? And so we start looking at the experience that I had and realized it didn't quite add up, and I still needed some time outside of flight instructing actually in order to meet their minimums. So I was looking at some different jobs in the area and soon realized that I was going to need to apply to a job outside of flight instructing to make up for this time. So my focus started shifting actually towards Alaska. I called one of our other alumni, and I was looking at one of the companies that he works for up in Alaska. And so by early fall, I had an interview set up, and I was going to fly up to Alaska to make this interview and possibly get a job and move out there. And 2 a.m. the night that I was supposed to get on the flight to go out there, I got an email from them saying that they had an accident and that now is not a good time to come, and asked for me to reschedule my trip. So I ended up canceling the whole thing, and I'm kind of looking at God like, okay, well, now what? What am I going to do now? And a few days later, the recruiter sends me an email and asked me to resubmit a list of my experience, and he was going to submit that to the board at MAF. And so I sent that in to him, and it was really funny because I wrote down in my journal, because I started journaling a lot last year, I wrote down in my journal how funny would it be if God opens up the doors to MAF, because all of the work that I've been doing the last few months has been applying towards other jobs, and it just kind of goes to show that it has nothing to do with what you do or accomplish, but it all has to do with being obedient to what God's calling you to do. And so the next week he gets back to me and said that they had approved his request to make an exception, and that I was invited to apply to Mission Aviation Fellowship. So I spent the next week filling out this 22-page application, getting all my references together, and I sent that in to them, and shortly after they invited me out for the technical evaluation. So 2 weeks later, I'm on an airplane going to Idaho for my evaluation. So as soon as I found out that I was accepted to come for the technical evaluation, I realized that I didn't really have the money to pay for it. I had been planning on doing this technical evaluation because I thought that I was going to have to get another job for the next year. So I did what any millennial would do, and I did a GoFundMe. So the evaluation was going to cost close to $3,000 between flying out there and the cost for the plane and everything, because as far as the technical evaluation goes, you have to pay for it all. So I, on a whim, posted a GoFundMe the evening that I found out that I could go. I was accepted to come to the technical evaluation, and in less than 2 days I had raised $3,000. So once again, it was just God totally showing up and providing in ways that were just way beyond my imagination. So 2 weeks after that, I was on a plane heading to Idaho for the technical evaluation with Mission Aviation Fellowship. I spent a week and a half there being grilled by the mission committee, some intense flight evaluation, as well as a psychological evaluation, which I barely passed. Just kidding. And at the end of it, even though it was so last minute and I really didn't feel like I had time to prepare for it the way I wanted to, God just showed up again, and my prayer was that He would allow me to perform above and beyond what I'm capable of, and He totally provided. And I passed the technical evaluation with flying colors. The next step was candidacy class, which happened 2 months later, which I just completed, and I'm now on the road to raising support to go overseas and serve with Mission Aviation Fellowship in Indonesia. So Indonesia is located all the way on the other side of the world, just north of Australia. I'm going to the island of Borneo, which is in central Indonesia, and specifically the portion of the island Kalimantan. Indonesia is made up of 17,000 islands, so it's pretty big, and 80% of the people there are Muslim. So what I'm going to be doing with Mission Aviation Fellowship, we'll be flying out of a city into some of the most remote parts of the island where you can only get there by hiking through really, really dense, treacherous jungle or by boat. Some of these villages can take up to 5 months to get there by foot, but we can reduce that to a single hour by plane. So we're flying into some of the most remote areas of the world. We're bringing missionaries and teachers and pastors to spread the gospel and to support the national church. We also have a huge hand in medical relief work. So we'll do medical evacuations. We can bring in supplies for when people get sick. If there's some kind of famine, we can bring in supplies for that as well, and we'll bring teachers and nurses. And MEF just really, we're bridging the gap between these really isolated villages and the rest of the body of Christ. So we're a support system for some of the most remote people on earth. And so I'm really excited to be serving with them as a pilot and facilitating these flights between Tarakan and Central Kalimantan. I'd like to share with you guys one of my hero verses, Ephesians 2:8 through 10. For it is by grace we have been saved through faith, and this is not of ourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no man can boast. For we are Christ's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which He prepared in advance for us to do. So I'm super excited to be going to Indonesia with Mission Aviation Fellowship to serve as a pilot, and I would love to invite you to partner with me in prayer, because this is going to be a really intense journey. So I'd love for you guys to pray for me. If any of you feel called to support me financially, that would be amazing as well. And you can find me on the website with Mission Aviation Fellowship. And I would just appreciate any kind of support that you guys feel led to give. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share.